Hey guys, so quickly before we start the next episode of Let's Read, in the comments, please tell me, is the thumbnail working? The one with the explosions and the title, say the thing. Because I don't see it on mine. Maybe it's because I'm logged in to that account, or I'm on the tablet, and I uploaded it on that tablet, on my tablet. So please tell me if the thumbnail's working for you guys on computer and mobile. If it's not, I'll try and sort it. I just had a shower and everyone else is having a shower. Because we're going out today, so I thought I'd do it now. Okay, so Chapter 2. For Chapter 2, Alex Rider Stormbreaker, Chapter 2. Heaven for Cars. With Hammersmith Bridge just ahead of him, Alex left the river and swung his bike through the lights and down the hill toward Brooklyn School. The bike was a Condor Junior road racer, custom built for him on his 12th birthday. It was a teenage bike with a cut-down Reynolds 131 frame, but the wheels were full size so he could ride at speed with hardly any rolling resistance. He spun past the delivery van and passed through the school gates. He would be sorry when he grew out the bike. For 2 years now, it had almost been part of him. He double-locked it in the shed and went into the yard. Brooklyn was a modern school, all red brick, and to Alex's eye, rather ugly. He could have gone to any of the exclusive private schools around Chelsea, but Ian Ryder had decided to send him here. He had said it would be more of a challenge. The first period of the day was algebra. When Alex came into the classroom, the teacher, Mr. Donovan, was already chalking up a complicated equation on the board. It was hot in the room, the sun streaming in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, put in by the architects who should have known better. As Alex took his place near the back, he wondered how he was going to get through the lesson. How could he possibly not think about algebra when there was so many other questions churning through his mind? The gun at the funeral, the way Blunt had looked at him, the van with Stryker and Son written on the side, the empty office, and the biggest mystery of all, the one detail that refused to go away, the seatbelt. Ian Ryder had been wearing a seatbelt. But of course he had. Ian Ryder had never been one to give lectures. He had always said Alex should make up his own mind about things, but he had this thing about seatbelts. The more Alex thought about it, the less he believed it. A collision in the middle of the city. Suddenly he wished he could see the car. At least the wreckage would tell him that the accident really happened. That Ian Ryder had died that way. Alex? Alex looked up and realised that everyone was staring at him. Mr. Donovan had just asked him something. He quickly scanned the blackboard. Blackboard? God, not whiteboard? Wow, everyone, most schools have blackboards now. I mean whiteboards. Blackboard? That used to. Now we have whiteboards like in primary school, and then use a pen or a marker. Then you also have a electronic whiteboard. It's probably in America as well, so most schools use them. Alex, he quickly scanned the blackboard, taking in the figures. Yes, sir, he said. X equals 7 and Y is 15. The math teacher sighed. Yes, Alex, you're absolutely right, but actually I was asking you to open the window. Oh my god. I've gone back a couple pages there. Somehow he managed to get through the rest of the day, but by the time the final bell rang, his mind was made up. While everyone else streamed out, he made his way to the secretary's office and borrowed a copy of the Yellow Pages. What are you looking for? The secretary asked. Miss Bedfordshire had always had a soft spot for Alex. Auto junkyards, Alex flipped through the pages. If a car got smashed up near Old Street, they'd take it somewhere near, wouldn't they? I suppose so. Here, Alex had found the yards listed under auto wreckers, but there were dozens of them fighting for attention over 4 pages. Is this for a school project? The secretary asked. She knew Alex had lost a relative, but not how. Sort of. Alex was reading the addresses, but they told him nothing. This one's quite near Old Street. Miss Bedfordshire pointed at the corner of the page. Wait, Alex tugged the book toward him and looked at the entry underneath the one the secretary had chosen. J.B. Stryker Auto Wreckers. Heaven for Cars. Call us today. That's in Vauxhall, Miss Bedfordshire said. Not too far from here. I know, but Alex had recognised the name, J.B. Stryker. He thought back to the van he had seen outside his house on the day of the funeral, Stryker and Son. Of course it might just be a coincidence, but it was still somewhere to start. He closed the book. I'll see you, Miss Bedfordshire. Be careful, the secretary watched. Be careful. The secretary watched Alex leave, wondering why she had said that. Maybe it was his eyes. Dark and serious, there was something dangerous out there. Then the telephone rang, and she forgot him as she went back to work. J.B. Stryker's was a square of wasteland behind the railway tracks, running out of Waterloo Station. The area was enclosed by a high brick wall, topped with broken glass and razor wire. 2 wooden gates hung open, and from the other side of the road, Alex could see a shed with a security window, and behind it, the tottering piles of dead and broken cars. Everything of any value had been stripped away, and only the rusting carcass remained, heaped one on top of the other, waiting to be fed into the crusher. There was a guard sitting in the shed, reading a newspaper. In the distance, a bulldozer coughed to life, then roared down on a battered Ford Taurus, its metal claw smashing through the window to scoop up the vehicle and carried it away. A telephone rang somewhere in the shed, and the guard turned around to answer it. That was enough for Alex. Holding his bike and wheeling it alongside him, he sprinted through the gates. He found himself surrounded by dirt and debris. The smell of diesel was thick in the air, and the roar of engines was deafening. Alex watched as a crane swooped down on one of the cars, seized it in a metallic grip, and dropped it into a crusher. For a moment, the car rested on the pair of shelves. Then the shelves lifted up, toppling the car over and down into a trough. The operator, sitting in a glass cabin at the one end of the crusher, pressed a button, and there was a great belch of black smoke. The shelves closed in on the car like a monster insect folding its wing in its wings. There was a grinding sound as the car was crushed until it was no bigger than a rolled-up carpet. Then the operator threw a gear and the car was squeezed out, metallic toothpaste being chopped up by a hidden blade. The slices tumbled to the ground. Leaving his bike propped against the wall, Alex ran farther into the yard, crouching down behind the wrecks. With the din from the machines, there was no chance that anyone would hear him, but he was still afraid of being seen. He stopped to catch his breath, drawing a grimy hand across his face. His eyes were watering from the diesel fumes. The air was as filthy as the ground beneath him. He was beginning to regret coming, but then he saw it. His uncle's BMW was parked a few yards away, separated from the other cars. At first glance, it looked absolutely fine. The metallic silver bodywork, not even scratched. Certainly, there was no way that this car could have been involved in a fatal collision with a truck or with anything else, but it was definitely his uncle's car. Alex recognised the license plate. He hurried closer, and it was now that he saw the car was damaged after all. The windshield had been smashed along with the windows on the driver's seat. Alex made his way around the other side and froze. Ian Ryder hadn't died in any accident. What had killed him was plain to see, even to someone who had never seen such a thing before. A spray of bullets had caught the car full on the driver's side, shattering the front tyre, smashing the window shield and side windows, and plunging into the side panels. Alex ran his fingers over the holes. The metal felt cold against his flesh. He opened the door and looked inside. The front seats were pale grey leather, strewn with fragments of broken glass, and stained with patches of dark brown. He didn't need to ask what the scene was. He could see everything. The flash of the machine gun, the bullets ripping into the car. Ian Ryder joking in the driver's seat. But why? Why kill a bank manager? Why had the murder been covered up? It was the police who delivered the news that night, so they must be part of it. Had they lied deliberately? None of it made sense. You should have gotten rid of it 2 days ago. Do it now. The machines must have stopped for a moment. If there hadn't been a sudden lull, Alex would have never heard the men coming. Quickly he looked across the steering wheel out the other side. There were 2 of them, both dressed in loose-fitting overalls. Alex had a feeling he'd seen them before at the funeral. One of them was the driver. the man he had seen with the gun. He was sure of it. Whoever they were only a few paces away from the car, talking in low voices. Another few steps and they would be there. Without thinking, Alex threw himself inside, the only hiding place available inside the car itself. Using his foot, he hooked the door and closed it. At the same time, he became aware that the machine had started again and he could no longer hear the men. He didn't dare look up. A shadow fell across the window as the two men passed, but then they were gone. He was safe. And then something hit the BMW with such force that Alex cried out. His whole body caught in a massive shockwave that tore him away from the steering wheel and threw him helplessly into the back. The roof buckled and three huge metal fingers tore through the skin of the car like a fork through an eggshell, trailing dust and sunlight. One of the fingers grazed the side of his head. Any closer and it would have cracked his skull. Alex yelled as blood trickled over his eyes. He tried to move, then was jerked back a second time as the car was yanked off the ground and tilted high up in the air. He couldn't move, but his stomach lurched as the car swung in an arc. The metal grinding and the light spinning. The BMW had been picked up by the crane. It was going to be put inside the crusher, with him inside. He tried to raise himself up, to wave through the windows, but the claw of the crane had already flattened the roof, pinning his left leg, perhaps even breaking it. He couldn't feel nothing. He lifted a hand and managed to pound on the back window, but he couldn't break the glass. Even if the workmen were staring at the BMW, they would never see anything moving inside. His short flight across the junkyard ended with a bone-shattering crash as the crane deposited the car on the iron shelves of the crusher. Alex tried to fight back his sickness and despair and think of what to do. Any moment now, the operator would send the car tipping into the coffin-shaped trough. The machine was a Lefort shear, a slow-motion guillotine. At the press of a button, the two wings would close on the car with a joint pressure of 500 tons. The car with Alex inside would be crushed beyond recognition, and the broken metal and flesh would then be chopped into sections. Nobody would ever know what had happened. He tried with all his strength to free himself, but the roof was too low. His leg was trapped. Then his whole world tilted, and he felt himself falling into darkness. The shelves were lifted. The BMW slid to one side, and fell a few yards into the trough. Alex felt the metalwork collapsing all around him. The back window exploded, and glass showered around his head. Dust and diesel fumes punching into his nose and eyes. There was hardly any daylight now, but looking out of the back, he could see the huge steel head of the piston that would push what was left of the car through the exit hole on the other side. The engine tone of the Lefort shear changed as it prepared for the final act. The metal wings shuddered. In a few seconds' time, the two of them would meet, crumpling the BMW like a paper bag. Alex would put with all his strength and was as astonished when his leg came through. It took him perhaps a second, one precious second, to work out what had happened. When the car had fallen into the trough, it landed on its side. The roof had buckled again, just enough to free him. His hand scrambled for the door, but of course that was useless. The doors were too bent. They would never open. The back window, with the glass gone, he could crawl through the frame, but only if he moved fast. The wings began to move. The BMW screamed as two walls of solid steel relentlessly crushed it. More glass shattered. One of the wheel axles snapped with the sound of a thunderbolt. Darkness began to close in. Alex grabbed hold of what was left of the back seat. Ahead of him he could see a single triangle of light, shrinking faster and faster. He could feel the weight of the two walls pressing down on him. The car was no longer a car, but the fist of some hideous monster snatching at the insect that Alex had become. With all of his strength he surged forward. His shoulders passed through the triangle and out into the light. Next came his legs, but at the last moment his shoe caught a piece of jagged metal. He jerked and the shoe was pulled off and falling back into the car. Alex heard the sound of the leather being squashed. Finally, clinging to the black oily surface of the observation platform at the back of the crusher, he dragged himself clear and managed to stand up. He found himself face to face with a man so fat that he could barely fit into the small cabin of the crusher. The man's stomach was pressed against the glass. His shoulders squeezed into the corners. A cigarette dangled on his lower lip as his mouth fell open and his eyes stared. What he had saw was a boy in rags of what had once been a school uniform. A whole sleeve had been torn off, and his arm, streaked with blood and oil, hung limply by his side. By the time the operator had taken this all in, come to his senses, and turned the machine off, the boy had gone. Alex clambered down the side of the crusher, landing on one foot that still had his shoe. He was aware now of all the pieces of jagged metal lying everywhere. If he wasn't careful, he would cut open the other foot. His bicycle was where he left it, leaning against the wall, and gingerly, half-hopping, he made for it. Behind him, the voice heard the cabin of the crusher open, and a man's voice called out, raising the alarm. At the same time, a second man ran forward, stopping Alex between his bike. It was the driver, the man he had seen at the funeral. His face twisted into a hostile frown, was curiously ugly, greasy hair, watery eyes, pale, lifeless skin. "What do you think?" he began. His hand slid into his jacket. Alex remembered the gun and instantly, without even thinking, swung into action. He had started learning karate when he was 6 years old. One afternoon, with no explanation, Ian Ryder had taken him to a local club for his first lesson, and he had been going there once a week ever since. Over the years, he had passed through the various KU student grades, but it was only the year before that he had become a first-grade Dan, a black belt. When he arrived at Brooklyn School, his gentle looks and accent had quickly brought him to attention of the school bullies. 3 hulking 16-year-olds, they had cornered him once behind the bike shed. The encounter lasted less than a minute. The next day, one of the bullies had left Brooklyn, and the other 2 had never troubled anyone again. Now Alex brought one leg, twisted his body around, and lashed out. The back kick, Ushiro Geri, is said to be the most lethal in karate. His foot powered into the man's abdomen with such force that the man didn't even have time to cry out. His eyes bulged and his mouth half opened in surprise. Then, with his hand still halfway in his jacket, he crumpled to the ground. Alex jumped over him, snatched up his bike, and swung himself onto it. In the distance, a fur man was running toward him. He heard the single word "stop" called out. Then there was a crack, and a bullet whipped past. Alex gripped the handlebars and pedalled as hard as he could. The bike shot forward over the rubble and out through the gates. He took one look over his shoulder. Nobody had followed him. With one shoe on, one shoe off, his clothes in rags and his body streaked in oil, Alex knew he must look a strange sight, but then he fought back to the last seconds inside the crusher, inside with relief. He could be looking a lot worse. So that was quite a long chapter. That was a lot, nearly probably 10 pages, so I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Remember, leave in the comments if the thumbnail is working. I might get the thumbnail up on this later, maybe tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to try to do these daily as good as most I can. Sometimes, thingy. So I am sorry this video was kind of long. It's nearing 18 minutes now. So, yeah. Remember, comment if you see the thumbnail. The thumbnail's explosions in the title. And I will see you guys next time. Like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out. Bye.